Welcome, everybody, to Adapter Parish, episode 65, The Thomas Crown Affair. Before the heist begins, let's talk about our next episode. So, the quarantine is getting us all introspective, and we've been spending a lot of time looking back. Our show has evolved a lot since our first episode, and when we look back at some of those early episodes, we're struck by how willing we were to keep our scope limited. Oh, that book was adapted into 7 movies? Well, look at 2 of them. That's not really us anymore. So we've decided to revisit a few episodes, starting with the one that started us all off, Anne of Green Gables. In 2 weeks, on Tuesday, May 5th, we'll be looking at all of the major adaptations of L.M. Montgomery's classic book that we can find. We hope you join us in this look back. Now, a quick correction from last week's episode on The Borrowers, and this correction comes from me. In that episode, I said with all the confidence in the world that Steven Spielberg directed the live-action Flintstones movie from 1994. Then we released the episode. Then I tried to verify that information. Clearly, that was all in the wrong order. He was an executive producer on the movie, but it was directed by Brian Levant. But I stand by everything else I said. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adaptorparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 65, The Thomas Crown Affair. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw, and today we will be discussing the movie The Thomas Crown Affair and its remake, The Thomas Crown Affair.
Okay, I need your help with something.
Okay.
Right off the bat here.
Okay.
I need to parse something right now.
Okay.
And I can't tell if... Okay, well, let me do the thing.
Okay.
I have a reading.
Okay.
Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending nor beginning on an ever-spinning reel, like a snowball down a mountain or a carnival balloon, like a carousel that's turning, running rings around the moon, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes of its face, and the world is like an apple, whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. I have a question.
Yeah.
Are those lyrics good?
No.
Are they bad?
Yes.
Why are they bad?
They don't make sense.
Like, it's definitely very pretty.
I mean, it's like a Bond song. Like this, they're clearly...
Is it?
I think so.
I don't know. It doesn't even sound like a Bond song.
Let the sky fall. Let the sky fall.
Do you know any other lyrics to that?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
I don't even know that lyric.
I mean, that is a lyric in the song. You did a good job
Thank
to
you.
a point.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was why am I singing this? So that was Noel Harrison's song "The Windmills of Your Mind" from the film The Thomas Crown Affair, 1968.
Yes.
God, I can't even remember. It won the Oscar.
I don't know.
It was at least
I
nominated
think
for
it was
best
nominated.
song.
I don't think it won.
It was written by Michael Legrand, music, Marilyn Bergman, and Alan Bergman did the lyrics, and it was performed by Neil Harrison. This song is all over this fucking movie and even pops up in the sequel in multiple ways. It pops up in the remake in multiple ways.
Okay.
What is it doing? This whole show, I need to get to the bottom of this weird song. It sounds like Billy Joel tried to write a Paul Simon song.
That's not a compliment.
No, it
coming
isn't.
from you.
No, that's intended. That's not intended to be a compliment.
Jeremy doesn't like Billy Joel. I don't understand. Who doesn't like Billy Joel?
That is incorrect.
Everyone loves Billy Joel.
That is incorrect.
Everyone loves Billy Joel.
I never said I didn't like Billy Joel. I just don't think he's very good
at singing.
I mean, no, actually, singing and playing, that's all great. I got no problem with that.
He did drive a car through that guy's window that one time.
I mean,
Who hasn't? Who among us?
Yeah, I mean, let he who has not sinned, et cetera, et cetera. But this is all beside the point.
Yes.
This is all beside the point. Because in 1968, there was this super cool movie that was made called The Thomas Crown Affair. And we watched it. I had never seen it before.
Nope. I'd barely heard of it before.
So this episode happened because we were kind of behind.
We needed a little breather.
And we needed a breather. We needed something that involved no reading and only like 2 things to look at. So we found The Thomas Crown Affair. I'd been wanting to watch it for a long time. So my experience of The Thomas Crown Affair in the culture was this. it was a movie that had Steve McQueen in it.
Mhm.
And then it was a remake with James Bond and Rene Russo gets topless. That was my experience of the Thomas Crown Affair.
I mean, this is all fully accurate.
No, it's accurate, but like appropriate.
Yeah.
Like, is that an appropriate thing to think about? Like,
she got topless a lot, so
Yeah.
like that's fair.
way more than I expected.
So many times. This is skipping way ahead, and we'll discuss this again. We so rarely do a movie because we tend to do classic literature and children's books. We so rarely do a movie with an explicit sex scene that I was scandalized.
I mean, you hate kissing in movies.
I do. So imagine how I felt about this.
It was real fun to sit next to you while this was happening. What was the episode you said it reminded you of another episode we did that just made you really uncomfortable? Was it Romeo and Juliet where there was just a lot of kissing and you didn't care for it?
I mean, there was a lot of kissing and I didn't care for it.
I remember you being very uncomfortable when we did that episode.
Yeah,
Well, the Thomas Crown Affair has quite a bit.
it does.
And
And a lot of chess playing. We are so far ahead of ourselves.
well, no, you're going in the right direction though. At
Okay.
least you're going back now. Now that's a reference to 68.
Right.
So we should talk about this movie.
Okay.
Let me give a little background on this movie. This movie, I'll say, here's who wrote it. It was written by a guy named Alan Trustman. Alan Trustman has a short list of credits to his name. That same year, another one of his movies came out that he wrote called Bullet, also famously starring Steve McQueen.
There it is.
He also wrote the sequel to In the Heat of the Night. They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. I didn't know it was part of a trilogy. I've seen In the Heat of the Night. I knew that there was a sequel, and I didn't know there was a third one.
Gotcha.
But he wrote that sequel.
Cool.
It was directed by Norman Jewison,
The least Jewish director in all of Hollywood.
which is ironic given the fact that he directed the most Jewish movie of all time. And you might be saying, I didn't know Norman Jewison directed Yentl. And I would say, oh no, you're thinking of the wrong movie. He directed Fiddler on the Roof.
We just watched that the other day. It holds up. That's a fine film.
Well, the weirdest fucking thing, we've been together how long now? More than 6 years.
6.5 years.
And we'd never watched Fiddler on the Roof together?
No, we had watched your high school performance of it on
Yeah.
tape.
Wherein I played Tevye.
Yes, he did.
Fiddler on the Roof, I'm just going to throw out there in terms of, I mean, I think it's important to say if we're going to talk about another Norman Jewison movie,
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that Fiddler on the Roof is the greatest movie musical of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I
feel like you could get people to get behind that.
am unwavering on that point.
Yeah.
Like take your West Side Story and go put it with the rest of the musical movies that are actually also really, really good, but not as good as Fiddler on the Roof.
It's a fine film. Norman Jewison, not a Jewish man.
Yeah, and I think he was under the impression that they didn't know that when they offered him the job.
I don't know why they would have thought it. I don't know what would have led them to that conclusion.
But much like Steven Spielberg famously 100% accurately and faithfully and respectfully captured the black experience in this country with The Color Purple, I'm kidding. Norman Jewison actually did a great job.
He did a great job.
He did a great job, and I've never heard anybody question his treatment of the Jewish people.
Yes.
In
Yes,
Fiddler on the Roof.
as you pointed out, accurately cast the three oldest daughters with sort of the three stereotypes of Jewish women.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you want to just scrap Thomas Crown Affair and just do Fiddler on the Roof right now?
That would be great. Like I'm not 100% prepared, but I could probably eke out like a good 90 minutes talking about Fiddler on the Roof.
I mean, I feel like we could make a list of 5 episodes that we actually don't need to prep for.
That might
Like,
be one of those.
You didn't need to prep for Anne of Green Gables.
No, I didn't.
I did.
Yeah.
You didn't need to prep for Little Women.
No.
I didn't need to prep for Jurassic Park.
That's right.
And if you've heard that episode, you may see that I probably didn't prep for it.
Anyway,
Those are the hits.
I wonder how much of this little run is going to make it into the final edit.
Sorry. So back to the Thomas Crown Affair. So 1968, Norman Jewison directed this. It stars Steve McQueen as Thomas Crown, the titular character. Must be fun to play the titular character.
Do you just want to keep saying titular?
Titular. Okay, that was my last one.
Cool.
Probably not. Faye Dunaway plays Vicki Anderson, and that they are the main characters of this.
Yeah.
Do you want to set up the movie?
Okay. There's a heist
Uh-huh.
from a bank,
Yes.
and the police are on the case. The Boston PD are on the case.
Oh, it's a Boston movie?
It is a fun Boston movie.
Yay!
And to aid in the Boston police's efforts comes the insurance investigator, who is Faye Dunaway, who is investigating the situation for the insurance company that is going to have to pay out the money for this robbery.
It's like $2.something million, which in 1968
was a large sum.
was at least like $4 million.
Yes. And she pretty quickly, with very little evidence behind this, hits on the fact that this rich businessman, Thomas Crown, has basically planned this complex heist for the lulz and goes after him and tracks him down, and also finds that the real story was the friends we made along the way.
How long have you been saving that?
Just
Oh, man. Yeah, the real investigation was the sex they had along the way.
yeah, and the chess they played.
Oh, the chess that they played. Sexy,
Oh,
sexy chess.
So much sexy chess.
Sexiest chess I've seen since searching for Bobby Fischer.
So anyway, she knows he did it, and he knows that she knows he did it, and she
knows that he knows that she knows he did it.
Everybody knows that everybody knows everything, and then at the end, she thinks they're gonna run off together.
Well, hang on.
Okay, you said to do the plot.
Spoiler alerts.
Yes.
Just for everyone, spoiler alerts.
Uh-huh.
I'm so sorry. Please continue.
He leads her to believe that they're gonna run away together, and then he leaves without her in the end.
And it's very sad.
It's very sad.
I guess.
It's okay. She'll get over it.
Maybe we should backtrack for a
Yeah.
second. So there is a lot going on in this movie, and I don't think either of us knew really what to expect with this.
Mm-mm.
Like, what did you know about it before we started?
I knew that it had something to do with crime and criminals.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty much it.
Yeah, you didn't think it was just about like a married guy having an affair.
No, I did not think that.
That would be a different version of this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's divorced though and has kids.
This is true.
We
But I
find
guess if it was called the Thomas Crown Affair, it would be that she was cheating on someone.
Right.
Because she has the affair with Thomas Crown.
I guess. It doesn't matter.
I don't see how that... Well, I mean, it's not even what the movie is about.
Mm-hmm.
But we start in like the coolest way possible.
Oh, yeah.
And the most 60s way possible.
A fun heist.
Which, well, no, even before that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the opening credits.
Oh, right.
This movie uses split screen like a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Like not only split, but like triple, quadruple screen. Lots of different screens.
I have zero problem with it. I think this movie looks awesome.
It looks cool.
This movie is a cool movie.
About cool people doing cool crimes.
And cool chess and cool sex, probably.
Yeah. Wearing outfits of varying degrees of sexiness.
In the coolest city in the world, Boston. In the 60s.
The swinging 60s. Down on Beacon Street.
Yep. I mean, I say it's like so cool, but I almost feel like I'm criticizing it because kind of all this movie has going for it is how cool it is.
Yeah.
Who would you say, just off the top of your head, who would you say is the most well-drawn character in the movie?
I mean, I guess it's Thomas Crown.
Yeah, I guess so.
What were you going to say?
I didn't have an answer for it.
Gotcha.
But now that I think about it, okay, because when I look at like what a deep character is, I want a character I can identify with.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that like that's who I would be in the story,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to be someone that I identify with in some way.
Yeah.
I identified most with the mook that he hires to drive.
Oh, yeah.
So at the very beginning of this movie, right as the credits end, we have this guy, this kind of heavy-set guy walking through a hotel, goes in one of the doors, and he is suddenly blinded by light, and there is a silhouette who is very cool looking and looks like he might have been in The Great Escape, sitting behind a desk. And this guy is talking to like a voice box kind of thing that changes his voice and says, "I'm going to pay you money to drive a car."
Mm-hmm.
That is what I'm doing. And we get a sense that this guy has hired multiple people to pull off a heist.
Mm-hmm.
And this mook he has a character name. I don't remember it, but the mook he is confused. He is very curious as to what's going on. He wants money. He definitely these are all things I can identify with.
Yes.
I found him a very sympathetic character.
Yes, very sympathetic. And we later meet his wife, who's terrible. So
I mean, his wife calls the cops on him.
Yes.
There's just a lot that really endeared me to this character, and I felt like he had more depth and an emotional life than Thomas Crown or Vicky.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that. So that's what we first meet, but then we kind of come back a little bit, and we meet Thomas Crown, who is the head of a company that prints money.
yes.
What is it, real estate? Isn't mergers and acquisitions?
Does it matter?
Like for the purposes of the movie, it doesn't matter. Yes, they say what it is, but it actually never comes up. He's a guy who makes a lot of money.
Yes.
And we then get the heist.
Yes.
And we find out that this mook is not the only mook that he hired.
Why do you keep saying
There's nothing more appropriate.
I've never heard that word before, ever.
For real?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Okay.
We get this heist happening, and all the while this is happening in like glorious, cool 60s split screen. It's amazing. We see
Technicolor split screen.
it's wonderful. And do you want to like describe the heist a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How long do you think you need to explain the heist?
Like, it could be either very short or very detailed.
How about, do you think you could do it in less than 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I wrote down manly men doing manly things. And then I wrote down
Like crime.
computers. There's computers in this movie.
Well, it's the 60s. They were so enamored with computers.
Okay. So there's a whole thing with everyone synchronizing their watches, which I said to you, no one has to synchronize their watches anymore because obviously everyone has like iPhones that have like satellite time, which is fun.
Thus reenacting a potential conversation that we would be having if we were tasked to rewrite the Thomas Crown Affair in 2020.
That's right. And so like you see all these people kind of converging on the bank. They all kind of look like the Blues Brothers. They've all got like hats and sunglasses on. And
super reminiscent of the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And it kind of becomes clear through, I would say, good acting and cinematography that like they don't know each other. They've just sort of been told to be at a specific place at a specific time and like a thing will happen. And we keep seeing like little things kind of go wrong and then people like make up the time. Like there was the one guy that he was supposed to be in the phone booth to receive a call and the phone was out of order. So he had to go to a different phone booth, like that kind of stuff, like just little things, but it doesn't really add up to anything going terribly wrong.
That scene in the phone booth is like the tensest scene in the entire movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great.
And they're all sort of converging together and they get two of the guys in the elevator and they stop the elevator between floors and there's two other guys that come on and immediately turning this movie into like my greatest fear horror movie because like literally my greatest fear is being on a hijacked or stopped elevator.
Well,
I never get on an elevator if I have to pee. I always pee before I get on an elevator because I fear that it will be hijacked and I will be trapped upon the elevator.
Well, at least if it's a hijacker, like the elevator can still move as long as the hijacker decides to move it. But if the elevator's like well and truly stuck.
And they go into the place and they get the money. It's a bank. And I mean, here's the deal. The thing that is nice about this heist that we later find out that Thomas Crown has planned just for the thrill of it all is that really nobody gets hurt. I feel like that would be the thing that would make him very unsympathetic if like someone had gotten hurt or killed because of this thing that he was doing just for fun. Except the one poor sap that does get shot in the foot. And as I said to you, like, listen, as long as you're going to do armed robbery anyway, you may as well shoot people like non-fatally, because I feel like the penalty for armed robbery and the penalty for like a non-fatal shooting of someone in the foot is like not that much different, right? As long as you don't kill anyone, I think it's fine.
Sweet, I think you might be alone on this one, at least in this room.
And so then,
for all I know, all of our listeners are
like,
shaking their head vigorously up and down like, oh no, she's right.
So then
Jeremy, shut the fuck up.
So then they try to get away with the money, and we find out that the one thing that you cannot plan for then nor now is Boston traffic.
And this is pre-Big Dig.
This is pre-Big Dig. So these guys are driving all around Boston, and the guy that we met at the beginning.
The poor sweet
sap. And he gets stuck behind a truck, and I turned to Jeremy, and I was like, and you know it's all one-way streets, like to get him... to get him back to where he needs to be. Okay, here's a funny story. Several months ago, I was still pregnant at the time.
A bunch of months ago.
So it was a bunch of months ago. This is when we could still like go out and do things, and also
for multiple reasons.
Jeremy and I...
This is, for anyone listening in the future, this is a COVID-19 episode.
Yes. Jeremy and I went to Coolidge Corner because I was...
Which is part of Boston. Most of our listeners probably aren't from Boston.
Yeah.
We should say.
Okay.
It's like in Brookline.
It's in Brookline.
That doesn't help,
actually. It's a nice little neighborhood. And they have two things that I really like. They have a manicure pedicure place that I really like. And across the street, they have an Oath Pizza place that I really like. And they have the Brookline Bookshop right next door. So it's really fun. You get your nails done, go to the Brookline Bookshop, and then go across the street for a pizza.
I mean, back before, like, the craziness.
In the before times.
Yeah.
Can't do any of those things right now.
No.
Perhaps someday we shall again.
Is anybody else finding movies that involve crowds of people just incredibly unbelievable right now?
I find them stressful. Like,
find
don't touch that. Don't cough on that person. Oh
yeah,
my
stressful
God.
and distracting is how I would describe it. We were watching like The Two Towers the other day,
Yeah.
and there's like a crowd of people gathered on like in Rohan on what's the hill where the castle doesn't matter. There's like a crowd of
Edoras.
They're at Edoras, and there's a crowd of people, and I'm just like, I should be focusing on the fact that like Gandalf just cast Saruman out of Theoden, but all I can look at is the fact it's a group of people around each other, none of whom are wearing masks or gloves.
You know what I find stressful on film right now? Handshakes. I like see
Yeah,
people
right?
shaking hands. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, this collective trauma, like we're all going to need therapy.
Mhm.
So anyway, we had a nice lunch. We're going to head back, and we got detoured off of, were we on Starro or Memorial Drive?
It's so important. We were on Starro, and it was the biggest piece of bullshit that has ever happened in my entire life.
Can you describe what
because there
happened
was-
on Starro?
God fucking damn it. So it was just the kind of thing, if anyone knows Starro Drive, it's just a couple of lanes, and it runs along the river, and it's very pretty when there's no traffic, but when there's traffic, you just want to murder people. So there was a cop that was diverting people off Starro into the back roads.
Into fucking Fenway.
Yeah, Fenway's terrible. It's terrible. And it was just the kind of bullshit where we got diverged and you are too far. You cannot back up. There's no possible way that you could get back on the main road. You have been diverged.
But
There's
we're
no
on
way.
the off ramp sitting in traffic because we're being diverged into Fenway on a Red Sox game day.
And that is when the cop looked at our car and said, "Oh, hey, the pregnant lady and her husband, her put upon husband, have been diverged. That was the only reason we were doing any of this. I'm going to get back in my car and keep moving, and the rest of the traffic on Starro can keep moving."
We were the last car diverged before the state trooper drove away.
And like, I'm going to say something that only makes sense if, like me, you're a main transplant in Boston.
Yes.
But we could not get there from here. It just did not work. And nowhere in Boston can you get, like, it just, nothing works.
Nothing works.
Nothing connects. Nothing works. I love it here. It's great.
It was a Sunday afternoon and it was a Red Sox game. So we were like slowly creeping along against the flow of traffic. It was the only grace of God that I didn't have to pee because I was really pregnant. Like, I don't know how we managed to sit there for 45 minutes and like not have to stop.
Well, thank God for that.
Thank God for that. I've now talked about peeing twice in this
Yeah.
episode.
Well, we finally made it home.
It was
It was terrible.
It was terrible. It was terrible. We literally were taking this tour of Boston, and I kept looking over at you and saying, like, is this happening right now? Why are we here? Why are we downtown? We were supposed to be driving home to our house. It would have taken us like 10 minutes, and it took us like an hour.
I just feel like it would be if you were driving from LA to Seattle and you suddenly ended up in Tijuana.
Yeah.
That's how it
You
felt.
just feel like, why are we here?
We shouldn't be here.
Why are we here right
you know,
now?
or Vegas or something like that.
And-
You'd be like, I don't mind it
and
here, and
people-
it's like it's super fun out, but like we shouldn't be here.
And people on the street, if you're in a car and there are Red Sox fans like in full gear trying to walk to the game, pedestrians are giving you dirty looks. Like, why would you drive down here right now? What are you doing, you dumb idiots? And we were like, we just want to be at home.
The cops were mean to us. They were so mean to us.
It was terrible. Eventually, we got ourselves back onto Starro, like 10 feet up the road from where we got off. It took us an hour. Anyway, this is a fun story about Boston traffic.
So if you're watching the Thomas Crown affair, Boston traffic almost screws everything up for Thomas Crown.
Yes.
But then it doesn't.
But then it doesn't, and he goes to play golf at the Belmont Country Club.
Yes, no, there's tons of Boston stuff in it. Like,
He
let's be
does-
clear. It's not even worth listing everything.
He
If you
does-
live in Boston, see this movie because
Yeah.
it is delightful.
He does so many like shitty rich person things in this movie. He drives. Okay, he plays golf.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
So the driver gets the money to a cemetery.
Yes.
And that's where Thomas Crown picks up the money.
It's Mount Auburn Cemetery.
and now it's not actually, it's in Cambridge.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Mount Auburn Cemetery is in Cambridge.
It's like Cambridge. It's not Mount Auburn. I found it. It's online. It's not Mount Auburn.
It's a different cemetery.
Yeah. But anyway, he gets the money and he has gotten away. And then we get this whole thing where we suddenly meet all the rest of our characters. So we see Thomas Crown in his life doing the golf thing, which I'll let you get to, I promise. But then we also meet all the cops who are trying to find the money. And we meet Vicky, who, as you said, was hired by the insurance company to help find the money. And she coordinates with the cops. And like all the pieces are set. And the chess game, the sexy, sexy chess game is about to start. As a metaphor for the whole movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, so do you want to talk about the shitty golf thing?
Yeah, there's just a shitty golf thing. Okay, so
What
here-
are all the
here-
shitty rich things he does?
I'm gonna get into it.
Sorry.
Okay, he plays golf.
Yeah.
He flies a glider plane. Is that what those are called?
Yeah, he flies. Yeah.
Like an ultra lightweight plane
Yeah.
that doesn't have an engine.
I don't know what it's called.
Real stupid looking. It's real stupid. And he plays fucking polo. Who plays polo? Quick sidebar about the Belmont Country Club where
Jesus.
we find that he plays golf. I used to live in Watertown right on the Belmont line. And I used to live right next to the Belmont Country Club. I'd walk past it all the time. And one time I was walking past it and there was a car like parked in the street parking right there. And I looked at it and its windshield was all smashed in and there was a golf ball sitting like right in the middle of like the crater on the windshield. And it's like these two like conflicting things in your mind. Like you think, oh, these shitty golfers, like they didn't even look to see where their golf ball went. And then this other voice saying like, if you park directly next to a golf course, like what do you think is going to happen?
Like, am I the only person, you ever drive past like a little league field while kids are playing baseball? Like, I feel like there's always like a 5% chance that a fly ball is going to get your car when you drive past it.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was a golf ball just like lying,
Just lodged.
just lodged in the middle of this guy's
Yep.
poor guy's windshield.
Anyway. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor? Do you think we can get through the rest of this one without telling like personal stories about our time living in Boston?
Yeah, I don't have any more personal Boston stories.
Good. It's a very cool Boston movie.
Yes.
But then we get the rest of this movie, and I would say the rest of the movie is really defined as the budding relationship between Thomas and Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
We got it. So like, okay, you mentioned the whole plot before. Let me just dive in a little bit more to set up the characters. So we basically have, I would say, like, here are 3 relationships that I will throw out there.
Mm-hmm.
There is the relationship between Thomas and Vicky.
Yep.
And it's very much like she like is she's kind of unbelievably smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like she figures out who did this too quickly,
like very instinctually. She's like, I just have a feeling. I think it's that guy. She sees his picture.
Yeah.
She's like, I think it's that guy.
Like it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
It felt very unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they have their whole cat and mouse kind of thing, and he's always one step ahead, and she really wants to catch him, but she's also falling in love with him, and we think he's falling for her, but he clearly has the power in this relationship because he is the man.
And it is the 60s.
Yeah, of course. Not that things change very much in 30 years,
No.
but we'll get to that. So they have their relationship. We also have kind of a minor relationship, I would say, is Thomas's relationship with his girlfriend, who he is totally cheating on.
Yeah.
With Vicky.
Yeah.
I only
They
this,
have an arrangement.
like they seem to be cool. I don't know. I only bring it up because they actually have a scene together where she calls him on his like destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something we learn about his character as a result of his relationship with this other person.
Yeah.
But we don't really ever find anything else more about him. And then the third relationship is between Vicky Anderson and Detective Eddie Malone, who's played by an actor named Paul Burke.
I did not know the character's name until this moment.
Nope. I mean, it's not super important. He is the like primary detective though.
Yeah.
And they have a fun relationship. I actually was super surprised, like pleasantly, because I came into this with certain expectations that I would say are informed by a lifetime watching media, most of which was created after this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as we kind of meet these characters, I kind of think, okay, I see what's going to happen. The detective, he's going to fall for Vicky. And there's going to be a triangle where she's not into him, but she's into Thomas Crown.
Right.
And I was convinced that was going to happen, like
Yeah.
low level convinced. Thankfully, like that
Does
does
not happen.
They have a super professional
Like
relationship.
I think he's got a wife and kids at home.
Yeah, I mean, but like that wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
In the context of this movie.
I see what you're saying.
But like he has a very respectful relationship with her.
Oh, totally. I mean, like he respects her as a professional, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, there's some typical like men and women bullshit from the '60s. Like that isn't awesome.
Right.
But can I tell you, kind of my favorite thing about the triangle between Detective Eddie Malone, Vicky Anderson, and Thomas Crown?
Yes, you can.
This movie. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the perfect example, but it is a perfect example of how the '60s, in so many ways, was the bridge between the 50s and the 70s in terms of filmmaking. Obviously, that's like saying the spine is really the thing that holds the front of the book and the back of the book together. Like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But the thing that I loved about this movie as we were watching it is there's so much in this movie that feels like it was straight out of the 50s. So basically, like everything that happens with the detective and in the police office, all of the actors look like they should have been in movies in the 50s. And even the way it's shot, everything about the way it looks feels like a movie from the 50s. But then we get all the stuff with Thomas Crown and Vicky that feels so 70s.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And there's violence in this movie, and there's sex in this movie, and there's stuff that
Well, there's chess.
No, well, there's implied sex. There's sexy sex. For this time, there was sexy sex. It didn't necessarily feel, it just felt like really weird as a 60s movie for me.
Uh-huh.
Like the music a little bit and the split screen, and it's very cool, but in just so much of it really felt like this really weird mix of what the 50s were for film and what the 70s would be.
Yeah.
So much. It just felt like a really kind of innocent 70s movie.
Yeah.
I was delighted by that. I was really delighted by it because the detective really he feels so out of place in this.
Yeah, I mean, there's this like sort of fun nod towards like burgeoning technology when she's getting really excited about like, well, we know like our suspect is someone that travels because he must have, he must be siphoning the money into a Swiss bank account. So can we take the names of our suspects and see if any of them have traveled a lot? And I think it's the detective who says, oh, and I can compare them in the computer. Like, let's take these lists of things and compare them. Like, that was such new, fun, cool technology.
Those dumb idiots 50 years ago.
Those dumb idiots. Anyway.
So, okay. I think we need to talk about the relationship in a little more detail between Thomas and Vicky.
Yeah.
Do you think the filmmakers thought that it worked?
Oh, I think so.
Actually, I'm going to go a step further with this. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of people think this relationship works.
Okay.
It clearly works for a lot of people because it's a pretty popular movie.
Yeah.
It's like clearly a lot of people's favorite movie. It's so much so like it's Pierce Brosnan's favorite movie because he wanted to remake it for so long. I do not think it works. It didn't work for me.
It did not work for me also, but again, you know how I feel about like smooching in movies.
Well, there isn't a lot of it. I mean, there is.
There's chess playing.
So there's the sexy chess scene. There's been a lot of cat and mouse up until this point, but then they're at his place and they play a game of chess together. And clearly the chess game is a metaphor for their relationship in the movie because he's always one step ahead of her. And then there's like no talking during the chess scene, but there is a lot of looking and glances and just sexy,
like,
just staring sexy daggers at each other.
Neck, and she kind of like just pulls her collar down.
Can I say something that might be unpopular?
Yeah.
Faye Dunaway is very pretty.
She's okay. She's
I'm being serious.
The hair, makeup, and clothing style of 1968 is not something that I personally enjoy. Like the sort of the long fake nails and like the big hair and the weird like mini dresses.
It was a
like,
thing at the time.
I know, but it just doesn't do anything for me.
Well, I mean, does Steve McQueen do anything for you?
Honestly,
yeah,
he's okay.
Well, good. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
He's just a cool guy.
Just a cool guy.
Just a cool guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many people in Hollywood that like Hollywood history that I'm not like huge fans of the way other people are. Like I like Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
I like when I see him and stuff. He's fine. He's not like my favorite or anything like that.
Well, Steve McQueen has that thing of like these old movie stars that like he literally could be any age. In the movie, they make a big deal about letting us know he's 37, and we looked it up and he was actually like 39. I don't know why they just shaved 2 years off his actual age, like for vanity.
Vanity. Just vanity.
Vanity. All is vanity. But like if you had told me he was 50, I would be like, yeah, he looks pretty good for 50, but I wouldn't have been surprised. I'm looking at this man thinking like this person is effectively our age, and like I just don't see it. Like he just seems like an adult in ways that you and I perhaps are not.
We're definitely the third graders in this situation, and he's the sixth grader.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's no way there's no way we're basically the same age.
Yeah.
It is impossible.
Yes.
So they have their sexy chess, and at the end they smooch a whole bunch, and it's implied that they bone.
And she kidnaps a boy.
I love how you're just skipping around. We're talking about this was the entire time watching this movie with you. Is like anything to get away from the sex.
Yeah.
Anything to get away from the anything to get away from the sex. Anything to get away from the smooches.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we can talk about the plot.
Yeah.
And her plot against him.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of stuff that happens like in the second half of the movie where they figure out who he is and they figure out how he did it and they identify the mook from the beginning and they find out that the mook has a wife who's willing to turn him into the cops.
Wait. I love how they do this though. They have this hypothesis that like he had a bunch of people working for him that didn't necessarily know each other and didn't know him. So like they couldn't be expected to know what they were even involved in.
Another thing they figure out way too quickly.
She's just like, I think this is probably the way that it went down. And the policeman's like, yeah, that sounds good to me. So they put this notice in the newspaper that's like, are you in close contact with someone that seems like he's acting shifty? Did someone close to you
has a lot of
recently
money.
come into a lot of money? Perhaps you should give us a call. And so we see the mook's wife. She's very angry with him because he let his son get dirty because they were having a catch in the yard in a wholesome manner. And she had to wrap her compost in this newspaper, and so she opens it back up and is like, I'm gonna call the police on my husband. And then Faye Dunaway kidnaps their boy.
Well, that's because she can't. They're not going to arrest him.
Yeah.
But they need to talk to him.
Yeah.
So they lay a trap for him, and that's why she kidnaps the boy, because
Right.
they want to see if he has a bunch of money.
Right.
So they say, we've got your boy, put the ransom in like the Goodwill box or
Right.
something like that, and they trap him in the parking lot where he does that, and that's how they prove that he has a bunch of money.
Yes. And also a boy.
Yeah. So he gets his son back.
The son's fine. He got an ice cream cone or whatever.
Yeah, he gets arrested. And also, he made a really big donation to the Goodwill, which that's fine.
That's fine.
Like, honestly, one of the
It
best.
was ill-gotten money.
One of the best scenes in the whole movie is she lays a trap for Thomas Crown, because at this point they are dating. They're fully dating.
They're fully dating. Like, he takes her to his like place in the Cape or
Yeah.
wherever, like Nantucket.
But she says, come pick me up at the police station. And he goes, and there's like a little waiting room. And the only other person in the waiting room is the mook, who,
Yeah.
of course, he knows.
Yeah.
But the mook doesn't know him.
Right.
And they're sitting across from each other. And the entire time they're sitting there, they're just staring at him through like a two-way mirror.
Yeah.
One-way mirror. Two-way mirror is a window. So they're staring at him through this thing, and he's cool as a fucking cucumber. He's cool as a cucumber shaped like Steve McQueen. And so they go out on their date and everything like that. And I guess not much else happens of note. It's just more of this. They get closer and closer. You get the sense that she genuinely is falling for him, but she really feels like she's wrestling with this. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty simple. And at the end of the day, I don't know why she likes him.
I do not. I mean, I guess like maybe you and I do not find his type of rich guy antics attractive in the way that she clearly does. I think that might be what it is. Like we actually find it actively unattractive
Yeah.
to like play polo and like
It's like taking her out in his dune buggy,
yeah.
like on the
I
Cape.
hated that dune buggy thing.
There's just
Ugh,
so
I
many
didn't like
scenes,
that at all.
really extended scenes with him like racing his dune buggy, like doing all his own stunts, because of course he's got to get in a car. Like,
Right.
That's his thing. I get that. That's fine. That's totally fine. But there isn't anything more beyond he's exciting.
Yeah, well, she's like a thrill seeker, but it's like fake thrills, you know, like.
And I guess that's my biggest problem with the movie, is that I feel like if there was going to be a main character of the Thomas Crown affair, it should not be Thomas Crown. Like, I do not think that for a second, because he is probably the least sympathetic character in the entire movie, because he's the one who's putting together all these heists. He's compelling, but I don't find him sympathetic. I don't really care that this rich asshole has decided to put people in danger and have people shot so that he could have even more money just to get his kicks.
Yeah.
So I don't find him sympathetic. I do find him fun and compelling.
Yeah.
Because he is cool. Vicky, though, should be the main character. And I would say, no, she's not even the main character. Thomas Crown is still the main character. It's like both their stories. She takes a really long time to show up in this movie if anyone was going to call her the main character. But I was really expecting there to be this person that I could actually identify with. But instead she comes in and they make so many choices that for me as an audience member set up this really big barrier where like she is incredibly confident. She's incredibly sexy. She has no flaws whatsoever. She has this preternatural gift for pulling out rich douchebags from piles of photos, knowing they're the one that robbed the bank. And she immediately falls for someone who she has already identified as this criminal because he has a fast car.
Yeah.
And is kind of exciting.
And she gets the policeman to go along with the whole thing. Like there's no real conflict even between them. He's like, oh yeah, you're doing a great job. Like I think it's kind of weird that you're sleeping with the guy, but like, hey, listen, if you get our man,
but
fine.
hey, of course I'm not going to be okay with that. I'm from the 50s.
Right.
So I just can't identify with her at all.
Yeah.
She's like a kind of, and for that reason, I don't even find her that compelling in this movie. I find Thomas Crown compelling.
Yeah.
For the reasons I said before.
Yeah.
I don't find Vicky compelling.
Yeah. Thomas Crown like maybe almost kills the detective at the end in the, like the slowest car crash ever. Remember that part where he like tries to set him up like for drunk driving? Like he knocks him out and then pours a bunch of alcohol on him and
not the detective, it's a different guy.
Oh, it's a different guy.
Yeah, there's someone
And,
like stationed outside his house and
rolls his car into a tree.
But like he could have really seriously injured this guy. Like he knocks him out, pours alcohol on him, takes the emergency brake off and lets the car run into a tree to make it look like this guy crashed while he was drunk driving.
Yeah, slowest car crash ever.
And this is, by the way, at his house in Beacon Hill. Do you have any stories about any experiences you've had in Beacon Hill?
No, I have not had many experiences in Beacon Hill, but I will tell you in the last scene when Faye Dunaway and the policemen are like walking and talking like along the river, they're not on the Memorial Drive side of the river where you actually
they are.
can do that. No, they're on the Starro side. They're literally on the side of the highway.
No, they're totally on Memorial Drive.
You think so?
100%.
I don't think so.
The buildings that you can see
No,
across
'cause
the
the
river are
Harvard-
the ones that are on the south side.
No, the Harvard buildings are like on the other side of the river from them.
I'm positive they're not.
Okay. It doesn't exactly matter, although I still think I'm right.
Thus ends 90% of our arguments. It's been so nice to give all of you a window into our relationship.
Anyway.
So the movie ends, and should we spoil the big ending?
Yeah,
The big surprise, because he pulls another heist
you do it.
with
Go
a
ahead.
different group of guys. I'm doing it.
Okay.
He pulls a heist with a different group of guys. That's essentially the relationship between Vicky and Thomas at this point. She says, well, go ahead, do your heist. And he says,
Like,
I'm already
it's
doing
happening.
it. It's happening.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. So a new heist happens. We see it. It's shot really cool. It's very quick because we've already seen it before. It's basically the same heist because the bank doesn't care at this point.
They do a different color smoke bomb, I think, this time.
Yeah. And essentially, he has told Vicky, I'm going to be where I'm going to be. And she assumes he's going to come to the cemetery. So she's there with all the cops and everything like that. And the car pulls up and it's got the money, and they pull their guns on the car. And it turns out it's this guy. It's this guy that's not Thomas Crown.
Some poor sap.
That Thomas Crown has hired. And this different mook says, I just was told to drive here. Here's a note. And she reads the note, and the note basically says, all the money's in the car. If you came by yourself, take the money and meet me in Switzerland or wherever.
Uh-huh.
If you are with all the police, well, then I guess you've got the money back. I'm gone, and you can keep the rolls.
Yeah.
And that is the end of their relationship.
Yeah, because she did come with the police.
And she's like sad.
Yeah, but like that was the choice she already made. She made the choice to come with the I don't understand why she's sad.
Yeah.
I don't know why she thinks that Thomas Crown was just gonna rock up and she was gonna be there with the police.
And like she wasn't going to be conflicted when that happened.
Right.
I want to go back to the very beginning. This movie's real cool, and that's about it.
Uh-huh.
The heist is killer. It is a real fun heist.
It's a super fun heist.
Real fun. Faye Dunaway's real pretty. Steve McQueen is compelling. I get why people like this movie.
If you live in Boston, it's fun.
Yes. Oh, particularly.
As you may have gleaned from my many anecdotes.
Mhm. I just like any movie that takes place in Boston that doesn't draw attention to itself.
Yeah.
Like The Departed, whatever. The Departed is
The
all
Departed
about
Kid.
like
The Departed Kid.
It won't shut up about the fact that it's Boston.
Yeah.
So whatever. I'm going to put that over in a different category. But this is one of those movies. It's like, no, it's just a cool Boston movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like a movie like this that isn't set in New York
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's just the standard thing. If you're going to set a movie like this in a city, well, of course you're going to set it in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it very refreshing that this movie did not do that.
It was in Boston, but like he didn't have to be in Boston. Like it literally could have been anywhere.
Totally.
But it was just fun that it was Boston.
Yeah.
Because we live here,
It
as
was-
we may have mentioned once or twice.
It's a cool movie. And as I said before, it was Pierce Brosnan's favorite movie because he worked for years to get it remade. And in 1999, that is exactly what they did. Now, I found out a number of things about the kind of making of this movie and about Pierce Brosnan's journey. Would it be okay if I told you a little bit about that?
About his personal journey?
Yes.
Yes, I'm deeply interested.
I read a very interesting interview with him where he talked a lot about his early career. And he strikes me as someone who is the most humble egotist I have ever heard in my entire life.
Okay.
Because he's very aware of his own ego, but he still has the ego.
Right.
But he basically told the story where he worked in a movie, I think it was called Nomads, and it was a movie with John McTiernan. It was his first movie. And I think it was one of John McTiernan's first movies, if not his first movie as well. And then basically, from Pierce Brosnan's perspective, he really wanted to be a movie star. But then he went to TV, and he watched John McTiernan go on to direct many, many great movies. Movies like Predator, movies like Die Hard, movies like The Hunt for Red October.
Many movies.
Wonderful, wonderful movies. And he saw Bruce Willis, who was in Moonlighting at the same time that he was on Remington Steele, go from TV to movies as a
I thought,
result.
I want to do that.
Right? As a result of working with John McTiernan. And he just talked about in this article, I'll link to it, but he talked about just like how his ego, how he had to get back to loving acting before he could really make it big. Because he loves acting, and that's really the most important thing. And the thing is, like, I believe him.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know.
It's like The Secret. Like he had to think it into existence. He had to like manifest it for himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he then got, I don't know if you ever saw any of these movies, but he ended up getting cast as James Bond.
Yes. I have seen those films.
So first you've got him taking over for people like Sean Connery, and then he's got this newfound fame, and he thinks, well, here's his deal. I'm going to start a production company because that's really what I want to do is produce. I want to be more in charge of the movies. I want to make sure the movies I want to be in actually get made. So I'm going to start producing. And one of the things that he decided to produce was the Thomas Crown Affair, and he really wanted John McTiernan for it. And it's one of those things where, like, to hear him tell it, John McTiernan was always their first choice, but he wasn't available for a long time. And I never really take those stories too seriously because I always assume whoever ends up getting the job, they're going to say is their first choice.
Sure.
So John McTiernan ends up getting the job to direct the Thomas Crown Affair in 1999. This movie was directed by him, stars Pierce Brosnan. It was written by Leslie Dixon and Kurt Wimmer. From everything I could see, Leslie Dixon really handled more of the relationship stuff, and Kurt Wimmer was brought in to do the action stuff. Because Leslie Dixon wrote a little movie called Mrs. Doubtfire that also starred Pierce Brosnan.
There it is. Well, I wouldn't say it starred Pierce Brosnan.
It stars Pierce. He is basically the hero of the story.
It was a run by fruiting star. He gets run by fruited.
And Kurt Wimmer, he at this point, the big thing that he did is he wrote Sphere, which, I don't know, for some reason I remember everybody loving Sphere and that all the critics loved it and it was really successful. But, anyway, the truth of the matter is lost to time. But he ended up writing and directing 2 movies. He wrote and directed Equilibrium and Ultraviolet. I was huge on the Equilibrium bandwagon in college. Do you remember that?
No.
Where Christian Bale does gun kung fu?
No. How would that be the kind of movie that I would be into?
I just don't know if you remember that it was a thing.
No, of course not.
It's about it's a dystopian future kind of thing. Equilibrium was like, I told myself it was an amazing movie. And here's the deal. It's fun, but like, it's not amazing.
You probably saw a lot more movies in college than I did.
Probably.
Yeah.
Ultraviolet was just a heck of a movie that I would advise that anyone watch if they want to have an experience. I would call Ultraviolet an experience. Kurt Wimmer didn't direct a single movie after that.
I see.
But I feel like Kurt Wimmer has a really good chance of coming up on the show again because 2 movies that he did recently, he wrote the remake of Total Recall. He also wrote the remake of Point Break.
Okay.
Which I would be happy to do on this show.
Let's talk about that off air.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry to air our process for everyone.
There it is.
So we start Pierce Brosnan as Thomas Crown. We have some new actors who are in this and some old actors as well.
Some very old actors.
Yeah, but actors that look great.
Still look
though.
great.
Still look amazing.
For their age or any age.
I mean, do we want to just call it, like, let's just come right out and say it. Like, this movie it's a pretty faithful remake of the original in that, like, yeah, the heist is totally different and the rich guy things that he does are totally different, but it still is the same basic plot.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that's not a knock against it.
Oh, I mean, the sexism is the same. So, like, they have that going for it.
Totally. So Pierce Brosnan is Thomas Crown. Vicki Anderson is no longer in this movie. Instead, she has been replaced by Catherine Banning, who is the same character.
Yeah. Again, a weird example. This happens all the time. They just change the names. Just randomly, even when it's clearly the same character.
It's super
weird.
weird.
Why keep Thomas Crown's name but not the other main character's name? Very weird.
It makes very little sense.
Yeah.
So that character is played by Renee Russo. She's great. We have Detective Michael McCann. So we have a new detective.
New detective, same as the old detective.
Played by Dennis Leary.
Yes.
Did I ever tell you my Dennis Leary story?
No.
He's an honorary doctorate from Emerson College.
Oh, good.
He got that honorary doctorate at my college graduation.
Oh.
And I remember his speech, and he was great. He was real. That was super fun.
Are you familiar with the writer Ann Patchett?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Ann Patchett wrote a book that was like a short book of advice to graduating seniors based on a graduating talk that she gave. And that talk was the talk she gave at my graduation at Sarah Lawrence College.
That's really cool.
Yes.
Dennis Leary got his doctorate at mine.
That's fine.
So Dennis Leary is in this movie. And then as a new character, actually, this is a reverse Sir not appearing in this film. We actually have a new character. I'd say that the best person I can say is Sir not appearing in this film is the Mook from the first one.
Yeah.
There are people that are hired by him to do a thing.
They have no characterization.
Yeah, it's not really the same.
Yeah.
Well, no, they have characterization. They're foreign.
Yeah, right. There's also the security guard in this who's maybe the best character in the movie.
Yeah, except they totally waste him because he's not even in the second half of the movie.
No, I know. It sucks.
It's horse
He should have been never mind. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
So this is the opposite of Sir not appearing in this film. We have a new character who is, you can tell how much characterization she's been given by her character name, the psychiatrist.
Oh, boy.
Played by Faye Dunaway. This is one of the first people we meet in the movie. The whole movie starts with Thomas Crown basically giving this speech about, I don't know, some fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And then we turn around and we see that he's talking to a therapist, and it's Faye Dunaway.
Here's the deal. I
Yes.
am not familiar with screenwriting. In its intricacies and
Okay.
the art of such.
Yeah.
But I would say it probably is a pretty reasonable principle to stick by. I don't know that, like, if a character doesn't make sense, barring the stunt casting of that character, and has no relationship to anything else that's going on in the movie, and could easily be removed without affecting any part of the plot, again, barring stunt casting,
Yeah.
probably that it is a character that you could remove from the film.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it more confusing.
But the
We-
stunt casting.
But the stunt casting, you see. So Faye Dunaway's in this movie for 4 seconds. She's in it like at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah.
She's a psychiatrist, but like the fact that he sees a psychiatrist in no way affects anything regarding his actions in the entire film. It does not pan out into anything at all, ever.
Not only does it not pan out, it kind of undermines everything, because I spent most of the movie wondering why he's seeing a psychiatrist.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't
like-
make any sense
And
for
where
him.
is he? Is this after the events of the film are over? Is it concurrent with what's happening? Is she in New York? Is she in Switzerland where he runs off to? Like, what is going on?
So I'll say my biggest takeaway about this bit of stunt casting.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. One, I legitimately find it refreshing that the age difference between the lead actor and the lead actress is 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
They are both in their mid-40s.
Hot.
Firmly planted in their mid-40s. These are 2 actors who look fucking great
Mm-hmm.
for their mid-40s. He even went on record basically saying that, like, they could have cast a much younger actress for this, but that didn't feel right to him. He wanted someone who could be his equal on screen.
Mhm.
This is also right around the time he was coming out with The World Is Not Enough, where he was playing opposite what's her name? Not Denise Crosby. Denise Richards. Where he was playing opposite
Crosby's
Denise
a different person.
Denise Richards as a nuclear physicist.
There it is.
So,
Well, and he didn't have script supervision over that one. So.
no, he did not.
Yeah.
No, he did not. He
Script
talked,
approval. I'm
he,
sorry.
He
Script
talked
approval.
about his like role as a producer. He basically said, my role as producer essentially comes out and says, my role as producer is just say, we're going to remake the Thomas Crown Affair. Here's kind of what I want the script to be like. And I'm going to give it over to a bunch of other people to shoot the movie, and I'll just show up and act.
Cool.
That's his role as producer.
Nice work if you can get it.
Right off the bat, I really appreciate the age difference. He really appreciated the age difference, the lack of age difference.
Mm-hmm.
But having now seen the movie, I actually think they fucked up.
Mm.
They fucked up. It should not have been Rene Russo
Mm-hmm.
because they're not. She's just not the best casting for this.
Okay.
Do you know who I would have cast in this role of not Vicki Anderson but Catherine Banning?
Who?
I would cast Faye Dunaway.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Well, a couple of reasons. One, she's great.
Mm-hmm.
She's Faye Dunaway. And number 2, she looks fucking awesome.
She was great.
I don't see any reason that she couldn't have done a sexy movie in 1999 with Pierce Brosnan.
Do you think she would have taken her shirt off in 1999?
No.
Yeah.
But
I think they wanted to have boobs in this.
they really did want to have boobs in
They
this.
like desperately wanted boobs and butt.
So I think we should talk about, let's kind of go through 3 different things.
Okay.
Go with me on this. First, let's really talk about how these movies are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how these movies are different.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about the stuff this movie decides to add.
Okay.
Because this movie adds a bunch of things.
Okay.
So how are these movies the same? Would you say they're similar in a lot of ways?
I mean, the basic plot is that there is a heist of a thing.
Mhm.
The thing is different, but there is a heist.
Yeah.
Sort of a complex heist.
And why did he do the heist?
For the fun.
Right, for the lulz.
For the lulz. There is a police officer assigned to investigate this heist.
Mhm.
And there is a person brought in from the insurance company,
A lady person.
a lady person, to
Sexy lady person.
assist the investigation, who ends up falling in love with the main suspect,
Right, the heister.
the heister.
So that's what's the same. What's different, though?
Well,
Do you want to start at the beginning?
Walter, let's just kind of go through the movie and start at the beginning.
Okay.
The heist itself is very different.
Uh-huh.
First of all, it's an art heist, not just like a money heist. It's a museum heist.
So it's like the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston or the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum?
No, I think it's supposed to be the Met. Although there's this big
That doesn't make
disclaimer.
any sense. The Met's in New York.
This movie takes place in New York.
It's fucking bullshit. It was such a cool Boston movie and they just put it in New York.
There's a big disclaimer at the end that says, like, this was not shot in any actual museum, which I guess is so that you won't think you can watch this to like try to get around like an actual museum security system. Did you notice that in the credits?
Yeah, I did.
I've never seen anything like that before.
Well, I read an article talking about the making of it, and they were so impressed by the fact that they built like an entire wing of the museum on a soundstage. It's like, yeah, that's how movies work.
That's how it works.
They do stuff like
That's
that all the
okay.
time.
I mean, it did actually really look like a museum.
They did a very good job.
They did a good job. So it's a very complicated heist. I don't even want to try to explain the logistics of the heist because it was genuinely very, very fun to watch. And at this point, we were turning to each other going like, holy shit, like this movie's great. Like the heist sequence at the beginning
Yes.
is super fun and surprising. Like things happened that you didn't expect.
Yep.
It had people like sort of double and triple crossing. Like there was a moment where we were both like, oh, like I get it. This is so crazy. The whole thing is a diversion. Like it was fun. It was genuinely fun and surprising to watch.
And like this is John McTiernan at his best, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Like genuinely.
For sure, this is direction because the script is kind of bullshit. First of all, the reason that the heisters get into the museum is that they do a fake delivery of this Etruscan horse and it's supposed to be something else, so there's some confusion, so they just leave it like in the basement because they have to like figure out what went wrong with the delivery. And I turned to Jeremy and I was like, literally a Trojan horse. And then they start like carving themselves out from inside and I was like, aha. And then like 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, one of the police officers is like, huh, guess it's like a Trojan horse.
They call that hanging a lantern
and
on
I
it.
was like, you didn't need that line. It was so much fun to just come to that realization by myself. I didn't need the movie to tell me afterwards. Anyway, so more people than you would imagine can fit inside this horse. I turned to Jeremy. I was like, well, because there's this whole thing that they like change uniforms. So they like are dressed as security guards. And I was like, this won't work because they had no opportunity to shower and they just must stink of sweat and pee for being in that horse for like many, many hours. So that was a big plot hole for me. Just I think the odor must have been intense.
You talked about it for like an hour.
I talked about it so long.
For so long. We do meet both of our favorite character in the movie.
The security guard.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
He's just a spitfire of a guy. He's one of those characters that should have had just one line, but then he really becomes a character and he gets action to do.
Yeah. Well, it's the kind of thing where Pierce Brosnan's character, Thomas Crown, is friends with this guy. He comes to the art. He's an art dealer. He's a very rich art dealer.
Well,
or
he's an art
acquisitions type of person.
Well, no, I mean he's in like real estate and stuff like that. He's in like mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah,
but
mergers and acquisitions.
He has a passion for art. He's a collector.
Yeah, and he comes to the museum like every day to look at the Monet, and he's friends with the security guard. And part of the plot of the heist this is something I really, really liked, depends on Thomas Crown trusting this guy to be good at his job and to realize that these guys are not who they say they are, which indeed he does. Like if they had fooled him, his plot would not have worked. But they didn't fool him, and he like comes at them with like a stick and starts like hitting them.
It's great.
It's great. So the heist is great other than the script. The script has so many things in it that take you out of the movie because you're like, this is not how the world works, and this is supposed to be set in the actual world. The part where he was like eating a sandwich in the museum, I was like, they do not let you eat in there.
Yeah. So the heist happens. And at the end of the heist, Thomas Crown gets the thing he wants, which is one of the paintings from the wing.
It's a Monet.
No bank, no money.
Nope.
And
just puts it in a suitcase and walks away.
He is involved. He's right there in the action. He's got skin in the game on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And so not Vicky, Catherine Banning. I'm just going to keep calling her Vicky.
That's fine.
For the purposes of the show.
Just call her Renee Russo.
Catherine. Well, I would call her the character name because Renee Russo didn't make this decision. Catherine Banning made this decision.
Okay.
She is basically the owners of the painting have hired her to come in. She works for the insurance. They don't insure every painting in the museum, but
right.
They insure this one.
Just this one.
So then, like, the movie is largely the same, but there is some stuff that is different. Like, he doesn't have a house on the Cape. He has a house in Martinique that they go to. Now, in the original, there was the sexy chess game.
Yeah.
In fact, so I want to read you a little bit of, because we mentioned things that are the same. The really half-baked love story, that's the same.
Right.
I want to read a selection from this interview where Pierce Brosnan is talking about what drew him to this.
Okay.
He said, "I thought, yes, the suits, the love affair, this chess sequence, it's doable," Brosnan remembers, "because there wasn't enough flesh on the bone of the love affair, I felt, and I felt we could explore the romance and what actually makes this guy tick and fall in love. And I also thought it dovetailed well into the persona that seemed to be happening with myself and James Bond. I don't think it was a big stretch, and I thought if we could execute it well and get the best writers and director and female star, we would be in." Now, something that he said here, he felt that the flesh and bone of the love affair was not enough and that they could improve on that.
One might even say the world was not enough.
The world would not have been enough. And also Tomorrow Never Dies.
It does not. And also GoldenEye.
Good pull, sweetie. So here's the thing. I'm trying to figure out what they added to the love story.
Nudity.
That's one thing. They added, I would say, more intense jealousy from the lady.
Yeah.
Like, she's a little more emotionally unbalanced.
Yeah.
And they removed the sexy chess game.
They removed it entirely.
Just not in it.
In favor of actual sex.
Yeah, they replaced a metaphor with... Like we say this so often, but like the subtext becomes text.
Yeah.
It really does in this movie. There is a lot of sex in this movie.
Yeah.
And I would just recommend, if anyone has never watched a sexy, sexy movie with Ariel Lipshaw in the room, I would advise it, because it's a hoot. It's a hoot and a half. How uncomfortable did this make you on a scale of 1 to
I mean, if you looked over at me on the couch, I had my hands over my eyes and was curled up in the corner of the couch like a dead bug.
And that was before Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo got their butts out.
Their butts were out. He was humping and pumping away. Like, her tits were all over the place, everywhere.
Kind of famously.
So many boobs.
That's all I knew about this movie.
She's just topless all the time.
Question.
Yeah, I saw his butt a lot. A lot of butts.
Does it add much to the love story?
I would not have said so.
I don't think so. It just, like, the love story is still just as half-baked, because the central question is, why is she in love with this guy?
Yeah.
We talked about it. Like, our conversation about that is no different than the original, because they've given us nothing new.
Yeah.
Nothing new at all. She loves him because he's handsome and exciting. And I would say this one's even maybe a little more toxic than the original, because it seems to be that when they were making this movie, they subscribed to the idea that the thing that really makes a woman fall in love with a guy is feeling that she is intellectually inferior to him.
Right. She like really loves that. Like, oh my God, I finally found someone I can relax around.
Yeah.
I don't have to be on all the time.
And I don't know, that doesn't feel great to me.
No, it's not amazing.
And it's weird that a movie from 1999 doesn't age as well as a movie from 1968, but there's so much more to talk about on that topic.
So I want to come back to that in one
Yeah.
second. Like, I think this may be a personal problem for me. On some level, here is my problem.
Yeah.
Neither of them does anything for me. I mean, they both look great, but like they are not, this is not the two people that I want to watch having sex. If anyone fits that description, but definitely not those two. I continue to be profoundly uninterested in a rich guy doing rich guy things.
Yeah.
Just profoundly uninterested about his feelings. Just don't care. Third, and this is what you were just saying that I kind of want to come back around to. So this is the female characters underwritten, right? I don't think it's a good look to remake a movie from the 60s that has a main character who is a woman with a job and a relationship without updating the gender politics of that.
Yeah.
Because the relationship between Thomas Crown and Vicky in the original is sort of profoundly 60s, as well as the relationship between Vicky and the police officer, which I thought was kind of progressive for its time.
Yeah.
In this case, it's actually their relationship is actually kind of backtracks on that, and it's 30 years later. Like at one point, he literally calls her a whore for having sex with Pierce Brosnan.
He figuratively calls her a whore.
Yeah, he says like, well, if you're getting something from him, what does that make you, or something like that.
Yeah.
Some words to that effect.
And she's hurt by that because it forces her to be introspective. She doesn't throw it back in his face
Yeah.
because it's a terrible thing to say.
Right.
No, that makes her go like, oh man.
Oh man, what
maybe
does
I
that make
am.
me? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh no. So like they've updated the time and place, but they haven't updated how the men and women relate to each other, which makes it reactionary. Like
yeah.
it's just has gone backwards in time. I really didn't care for it.
Yeah, and regressive.
Yes.
Like that's the thing I didn't like. No, the funny thing about it to me, we had this observation about something else in the movie because we were talking about like the costumes, because Rene Russo's costumes in this movie are just like
Insane.
glorious, insane 90s bullshit. And we had this observation, but it really fits so many other things in this movie. How weird is it that the original Thomas Crown Affair in so many ways represents like the most fun and the best of the 60s?
Yeah.
But this one represents like the worst of the 90s.
Yeah,
in so many ways.
There's this scene where he's at like a black and white ball and he's dancing with who she thinks is his young sexy girlfriend, and the girlfriend is all in white, and Rene Russo shows up and she's in black because of the symbolism you see. And she looks ridiculous. Like she's wearing like elbow length black gloves, but like a dress that shows a lot of skin and basically is a nightgown, and her hair looks very messy. Like she looks like a crazy person that has shown up in the middle of this like very fancy ball. And it's supposed to be really, really sexy, and it is not. That's when they were like kind of really groping each other on the dance floor in a gross way. It reminded me, so remember I told you I've been listening to all the old episodes of My Dad Wrote a Porno,
which if you haven't listened to it, is a wonderful show.
She looked like Belinda Blumenthal. Like she looked like how that completely ridiculous, over the top character in a bad porn is described. Like the outfit she was wearing is basically something Belinda Blumenthal would wear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess
someone will get the reference. Someone out there, please let me know that you understood that reference.
So two things about this scene. One, she did like, just to describe the dress in a little more detail, you know the kind of dress where like an actress will go to a movie premiere and they don't know that they're wearing the kind of dress that when someone takes a picture with flash photography
see-through.
that it's see-through?
Yeah.
And that's always unfortunate. The other thing about it, do you remember what Pierce Brosnan is wearing in this scene?
No.
He's wearing a tuxedo.
Surely.
Except he isn't. He's wearing most of a tuxedo, except it's unbuttoned a bit and the tie is undone.
Uh-huh.
Think about it. In this movie, do you ever see him wearing a tuxedo with like fully buttoned up with the tie done?
I assume not, because he would look like James Bond, right?
Contractually, he was not allowed to look like James Bond.
I mean, it makes sense.
I just think it's wonderful.
It's a copyrighted image, right?
Yeah, as with all things.
Yeah.
As with all things, the internet told me that. So, how can we know? Okay. Yeah, so they go and they do more rich people stuff. Like he takes her to Martinique without telling her where they're going.
Oh my God. They were on this island, like this beautiful tropical island, and she's basically been kidnapped, right?
Yeah.
Like she thought he was flying them back to New York City, and instead suddenly 3 hours later they're in Martinique, and he's like, go into the bedroom, like there's all these clothes, I think you'll find they're in your size. And I was like, literally I have nightmares about this, like showing up at the airport needing to go somewhere and not having my stuff. Like the idea of being taken somewhere and not having all of the things that are mine that I need and being stuck on an island is my actual literal nightmare. That is my anxiety dream. Mm-hmm. Again, did not help me in relating to either this movie or these characters or their lifestyles.
It's funny, we both came to different conclusions during the whole Martinique sequence about how much we didn't relate to these people. Yours was more about how like you would hate that and it's like totally not what you want. I had a realization when we were watching them in Martinique. This is a Nora Ephron movie with espionage.
Yeah.
Like everyone's wealthy.
Yeah.
Or if they're not, they're very comfortable in wealth. Mm-hmm. So there's no conflict about any actions or locations.
Yeah.
Like they can basically go wherever they want and do whatever they want because they're wealthy white people.
Yeah.
Like there's no question about any of it. And I just have a hard time identifying with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It's just, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Remember when they were both naked and she was lying on top of him, and for a minute I thought it was a pegging scene, and I thought it was like really progressive.
I think that was when I wrote down this note. It just said, "Oh, I long for a sexy chess match." I like subtext and I like text, but like sometimes text is better as subtext.
Can I tell you, while I don't know where this fits in, so I'm just going to like mention it again, an example of the script not understanding how the world works or would ever happen or be. So they're at this fancy party. I don't think it's the one that she shows up at later in the Belinda Blumenthal dress. I think it's
No,
a
it's
different party.
when they first meet
It's
each
when
other.
they first meet. Yeah.
This part of the plot, it's actually important to just mention really quickly, because this painting was stolen from the museum, he ends up donating another painting
Yes.
that he has to the museum, and they hang it up in the same
And they throw him a
spot.
little party.
Yeah, we're going to spoil the heist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to spoil the movie
Yeah.
because whatever.
So she's like at the bar. She's like at the bar, and he's like, "Can I buy you a drink?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she orders for both of them, and she says, "I'll have a whatever vodka tonic," and he'll take scotch. Neat. And he looks at her in surprise and says, "Oh, how did you know my drink?" And she goes, "Oh, I read a profile about you in some magazine.
I've done my research.
I've done my research. I've done my research, Mr.
Mr. Bond."
Crown." Yeah. And I was like, okay, of all, if you're at a fancy gallery gala like that and you say scotch, the person behind the bar will say, "Which scotch?" It's a fancy party for fancy people. They have different types of scotch. A of all. B of all, again, on a similar note, if there was a profile about this fancy man in a fancy magazine, it wouldn't have been like, "Thomas Crown likes to drink scotch. It's his favorite drink. Of course he likes to drink scotch." It would say, "Thomas Crown likes to drink Lagavulin 18, right?
Well,
And then she would order that specifically. And then he would look at her and say, "Oh, that's my favorite scotch. I like a Lagavulin 18. How did you know?" Because there would have been multiple scotches for her to select from, and she chose the right one. That's how scotch works. You have like one that you like. I like Lagavulin 18.
Here's the problem.
Yes.
Clearly, no company that makes scotch paid them to
It's
put
so
their
true.
scotch in the movie.
But you know who did pay them?
So many other people.
Pepsi One.
Oh man,
That Pepsi One scene.
She gets the Pepsi One out of the machine. She is
Sexually opens it.
It's crazy how careful she is being to make sure that the camera sees the logo on the can at every moment in the entire scene.
She like slowly opens it with like her red fingernails, and then the camera lingers on her as she just like tosses back her head and just drains the can in profile. It is a 10-second Pepsi commercial in the middle of this movie.
Yep.
And then he gives her a Bulgari necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, look at that Bulgari product placement." And you were like, "Oh, but Bulgari is a fancy brand. Do you think that's like really product placement?" And I was like, for two reasons, yes. One, I just saw a movie earlier this week that had exactly the same scene that someone like presented someone else with a necklace, and you could clearly see where it said Bulgari. It was The First Wives Club. I don't mind sharing that.
Whatever.
I was watching The First Wives Club. So clearly Bulgari was doing product placement in the mid-90s. And then I looked up Bulgari product placement, and apparently there was a book that came out by like a well-respected mystery author called like The Bulgari Affair or something like that. And
We'll find it. I'll link to it.
she was that she had contracted with Bulgari. She was contractually obligated to mention the brand at least 12 times in this book, and they were going to give her an undisclosed sum of money for doing so. And she went above and beyond her requirement. She mentioned Bulgari 36 times, and it was in the title of the novel.
This movie's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's
Well,
just, again,
Bulgari's apparently
Yeah,
ridiculous.
but it's again like the worst parts of the 90s. Really, really is.
Yeah.
I'm like going over my notes here because I feel like we can just go straight to the final heist.
Yeah.
And the end of this movie.
Yeah,
The
hey,
denouement.
Did you know Thomas Crown invented the flash mob?
Oh, he did?
He did.
Oh my goodness.
Gracious me.
This whole second heist doesn't really play the same now, I think, as it did then. For so many reasons.
So many reasons.
Like the internet has just changed everything.
And
So-
I just want to remind everyone really quickly, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to remind everyone really quickly, there's two heist scenes in this movie, the beginning and the end. We really liked the one in the beginning. We
Yes.
thought it was great and surprising and good and funny and interesting and fun to watch.
I would even say of the 4 heists we watched, best one.
Yeah.
Best heist, most entertaining heist.
Totally. So this is the anti-heist. This is him putting the painting back.
Worst heist.
Yes.
Worst heist in the 2 movies. Very bad. So it's not, because in the original movie they do the cool thing where like the second heist is exactly the same heist as the first one. And it happens really, really quickly. We don't even see most of it. Just the implication is the same because he's flexing right now and saying, I'm just going to do the same thing and get the money. And he says to Vicky, like, you know where I'm going to be. If you come alone, take the money and meet me. But if you bring the cops, like, I'm not going to be there. Like, he is playing with her
Mhm.
because he doesn't 100% trust her. And he knows she's probably going to bring the police anyway, but it's the flex. He does it for the flex.
Right.
In this one, it is a different heist because in this one, he's basically doing a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to spoil the trick
Yeah.
right now because I don't think it matters that much because it's kind of a neat moment, but it doesn't really say anything about the character at all. Like, we don't learn anything.
And also, I question when he had time to plan all of this.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the second heist was being planned when the first heist was being planned as well. He planned this whole thing as one thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess he must have, because there was a whole thing with that something was put into place literally during the first heist and when he donated the painting.
Yeah, so he donates this painting. I brought it up for a reason. It is important because turns out there's this whole subplot where they're like tracking art forgers that he knows and everything like that. It turns out the painting he donated is not the original of that painting.
Mm-hmm.
It was a forgery painted over the painting that he stole.
Yes.
And so part of the second heist is getting the fire alarm to go off and the sprinklers to turn on, and the sprinklers wash the paint off of the original,
Yes.
revealing the original. So it was in the museum the whole time.
Yes.
It was in the museum the whole time. I want to see, because there's so many of these YouTube channels where it's like, Yay Expert reacts to people doing their shit in movies.
There's so many of these. We like to watch them, but there's way too many.
There's an art restorer on YouTube that I love is like a Baumgartner art restoration. I find I'm big into ASMR. They're very soothing videos. They're very, very good.
Jeremy likes ASMR.
He's a cool guy. He likes talking about art restoration. I desperately want him or someone like him to do a reacts to this because it's presented as, oh, we've got the painting back and now we know.
Mhm.
It's not presented as, oh my God, I think this guy might have destroyed the original.
Roberto Monet, surely it can't be good for an original Monet to have water-based paint painted over it and then sprayed with sprinklers from the fire system.
'Cause you know where-
surely that's bad.
Because you know where that water comes from.
From the soup, where?
It's usually coming from like tanks on the roof that have been sitting for a long time.
Yeah, again, surely it can't be good for the painting.
I'm assuming it's not. So that's like dumb, but whatever. It's a cool moment. It's like a cool little trick. It's like an amazing magician doing a shitty little trick where you're like, oh, it's a cool little trick, but you're better than this.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It would be like, I don't know, Siegfried and Roy pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's like, you know what? I feel like Siegfried Roy, you're better than this. And that's how I feel about John McTiernan in this little gag.
Well, yeah, and also like, so the flash mob element is that he shows up at the museum at the designated time wearing like a trench coat and a bowler hat, and they start to try to like follow him and track him with his briefcase through the museum.
And they've already set up in this movie that he really likes Magritte's the Son of Man. You know,
Yes.
the guy with the bowler hat and the apple in front of his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it turns out he has hired many dozens of people also wearing trench coats and bowler hats to one by one converge on the museum. So of course they can't find him because he's lost in the crowd. And it just makes the police look so stupid because they're just like, what? And like running and sweating and like just trying to find this guy. And they look so dumb. And it doesn't make him look more smart or successful for fooling these dumb idiots.
Yeah.
Like, it would be so much more of a triumph if the movie showed them to be good at their jobs and he was just that much better.
And I feel like that's the challenge in writing. It's like
Yeah.
you need to write yourself into a hole and you need to dig your way out. And they didn't. They just avoided the hole entirely. They're like, well, no, the cops are idiots, so we can do whatever we want. It's
Avoided
fine.
the hole.
We don't have to come. Yes.
They didn't avoid it because we saw some butts, but that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Pierce Brosnan did many things to Rene Russo.
Yeah, upper butt,
Yeah.
presumably.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what part. I saw his butt.
For someone who's like super uncomfortable with this kind of stuff, you seem to be kind of fixated on it. I'm just saying.
I'm uncomfortable watching it. I'm not uncomfortable talking about it.
So that heist happens, but like the most important bullshit is what happens after the heist, because they do the same kind of thing where she like really wants to be with him, but she can't decide what to do. And I will spoil this. They do end up together.
Yes, on the airplane.
she goes
together.
Yeah, but before that, he basically says, "Meet me at this place after the heist." And she goes, and there's a guy there wearing a bowler hat, carrying like a big art portfolio that clearly has the new. Oh, he stole a new painting, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in addition to putting back the original, he stole a new one.
Jesus.
She goes, and there's a helicopter pad, and there's someone who she thinks is him, and his back is facing the camera, which clearly tells the audience that it's not him.
Yeah.
Because that's how these things work. She goes up, and he turns around, and he's like this British guy, but you talk about flash mobs.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about this movie that I think plays differently now, certainly to us and maybe to a lot of people, is that we see all these people in the museum, and I'm sure in 1999 audiences weren't thinking, oh, who are these people? I'm sure they didn't care, because you never see anything like this. You're like, it's kind of impressive that he got this many people together.
Yeah, but
But-
you don't really. You're not meant to think, where did he find all these guys?
But in the year 2020, if I told you, oh, there's a scene where 50 people are all wearing bowler hats in the Met in New York City, you would say, oh, okay, so a flash mob.
Yeah.
All right, it's a flash mob. It's a bunch of theater kids.
Right.
Cool. They're probably in an improv troupe, you know?
Yeah.
And it just made the whole thing like on the one hand, it made it dumb, but on the other hand, it made it so much more enjoyable than they ever intended it to be.
Right. To imagine that as this guy like turns around, says his line, gives her the portfolio, and starts to walk away. To imagine that he then leans in and says, "Hey, do you like improv? Do you want to see my show?
Do you like
here's
improv comedy?
Here's my card. Do you like improv comedy?
Every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday at 11:30. It's great."
Sometimes we get bumped, but you should come anyway. It just made it so delightful. So anyway, she goes and she's sad and she's gonna fly he gives her like a plane ticket that's already reserved for her to go somewhere, but she knows he's not going to be there. And she goes and checks. I actually was hoisted by my own petard a little bit because I thought what she said to this person was a stupid line. Turns out I'm dumb.
Oh.
So she goes, she's like checking her bag and she's getting her ticket and everything. I don't remember how airports worked 20 years ago. No one does. And
Well, she's like buying a ticket at the gate, which you absolutely can't do anymore.
that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I was confused by the whole thing, but I understand because times change. And the woman behind the counter says, is there anything else? She says, yeah. And she hands over this portfolio that has this like multi-million-dollar painting in it and says, can you deliver this to police headquarters and tell them to give it to this detective? And I heard that and I thought, this is New York fucking City. They're like, the police have a massive presence. I don't even know that she was at police headquarters. And also, is there even a fucking police headquarters? That's stupid and bad writing. And I looked it up and of course, yeah, there's a police headquarters in New York.
I mean, there's a headquarters. Like,
Yeah.
I still think it's dumb. She could easily have been in Newark. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah, it'd be amazing if they delivered it to like police headquarters in Newark.
Well, or like fucking JFK's forever away. Like, I just imagine this woman looking at her and going, "Ma'am, I'm in Queens. Like, I'm not going to go down to
Yeah.
34th Street or whatever."
Also, like I do the tickets here at the
Like,
I check baggage.
I can call a cop.
Who am I
for-
supposed to give this
I can
to?
call a cop for you if you want, but like, I'm not going to take the responsibility.
Yeah, like why
Like-
don't you give it to a cop? There's a cop over there. Give him the thing.
Like, I have my freaking work laptop that I can't return to the building because it's I don't know if you've heard, global pandemic, and I feel like that's too much liability to have in my house. Like, never mind a multi-million-dollar painting that someone's handed over to
In
me.
case anyone didn't listen to the last episode, did you want to say your?
Oh, I
life
got fired. I
Yeah.
got fired from my job. I don't have a job anymore. Goodbye.
Yeah, well, laid off as a result of the coronavirus.
Right.
Not because
Sounds-
you have it.
No,
Yeah,
no, I'm fine.
I'm glad we can laugh about it. We're having fun. So she gets on the plane, and then someone behind her speaks to her in a Scottish accent because they've already established that he's originally from Scotland
From
and
Glasgow. He's from Glasgow.
lost his accent. And she turns around, and there's Thomas Crown.
And they make out with tongues.
Yep. And then the stewardess is like, "Ma'am, you can't do
Flight
that."
attendant. We say flight
It
attendant.
was 1999.
I'm pretty sure we did say stewardess in 1999.
I mean, I'm sure when they were making the movie, they said to each other, and then the stewardess turns around.
Well, because they were old men.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it now.
All right.
So we end this movie, and like a couple of things. One, the most important thing maybe, over the credits, we hear Windmills of Your Mind,
Sung by.
Sting, who is my Billy Joel. Did we talk about Billy Joel in this episode?
I think so.
I can't even remember. Time has no meaning anymore.
Time has passed.
I fucking love Sting so much. I celebrate the man's entire catalog. He's so good.
That's how I feel about Billy Joel.
I know. And I think neither of us understand the other person's love for our respective artists.
That's okay. We can live together in a spirit of communal respect.
Exactly. So Sting does Windmills of Your Mind. I did not know this was going to happen. It delighted me to no end. And we're left with this super, super half-baked love story. And we're left with these two characters. So I want to end the discussion about this movie with just acknowledgement of how much it just really didn't achieve its goals. And I want to read another quote from that same article from Pierce Brosnan. The reason to remake this was the love interest. I wanted to make something sexy and romantic. How are you hurt by people? By believing in them and being deceived by them. This is a film which deals with trust. That's the opening line of the movie when he's talking to the psychiatrist. I can't remember her name. Oh, right. She doesn't have one. It's about a man who has everything and knows the male world of business and has had many affairs and been hurt.
Gross.
For him, it's a game. For him, it's a game. He's kind of dead at the beginning and alive at the end.
I hate it.
A bunch of problems with this.
I hate it.
You've hit on the first one. The male world of, go fuck yourself. But go fuck yourself harder for what you say at the end there. He's kind of dead at the beginning and alive at the end. Do you think the Thomas Crown we see in 1999's The Thomas Crown Affair has anything even resembling an arc?
No, he does not.
None.
Absolutely none.
Like, the whole point of this movie is that he's one step ahead of everybody. He was one step ahead at the beginning. He was one step ahead at the end. He takes what he wants at the beginning. He takes what he wants at the end. He falls in love with Rene Russo. He falls in love with New Vicky. But their relationship isn't based on his love for her as much as it's based on her love and admiration for him, because that's how these things work in these types of movies. I'm offended. I got so offended when I read this. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even have a problem with the fact that there's no arc for either of these characters in this movie.
Until he pointed out that there was supposed to be.
Yeah, I just got so pissed off by this.
Well, no, listening to you read that quote has no resemblance to the movie that we saw.
No.
But it is because we just saw that movie. He was not dead inside at the beginning, nor did he come alive at the end. He was the exact same person.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it was about her journey, which goes to show how self-centered Pierce Brosnan is. But if that was something that you were interested in showing, you have an absolute in for that, because in the 1968 film, we get this little glimpse that he's kind of self-destructive with his dangerous things that he likes to do, like flying this glider plane and all this stuff. So
there's the catamaran scene in this one where he almost dies on the ocean,
yeah,
but they don't really talk about it.
But they don't really talk about it. So all you really would have to do is at the beginning show him taking some sort of unnecessary risk, have someone call him on it, and then call back to it in some way at the end that he was willing to take such a risk at one point and now he no longer is because he wants to live. That's literally all you need to show that, and they didn't do it. I just wrote the movie sitting here and I don't know how to write movies, right? That would have been better.
It would have. There's so many things that would make it better. So I feel like we can end on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I just have there's a little addendum for this episode.
Okay.
We got a little epilogue. It's a 2-part appendix. 1, initially reported in 2007, there's going to be a possible sequel to this movie. I think at this point, there's no chance it's ever happening.
I mean,
at all.
2007 was a very long time ago at this point.
I'm just saying the way this kind of reporting works is just as initially reported in 2007.
2007 was 1 year after I graduated from college.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It was going to be a sequel that itself was going to be a remake of another movie from 1964.
Oh, boy.
Called Top Copy.
Called what?
Top Copy.
Top Copy?
It was a name of a castle in... I forget where it is because it doesn't matter that much.
All right, it doesn't matter.
It was another movie that was like a heist movie. And that I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the idea that you would make 2 movies now that are sequel. One's a sequel to the other one, but they're each remakes of 2 unrelated movies from the 60s. I find that interesting. In 2014, John McTiernan said that he wrote a script for the sequel while he was in prison, titled Thomas Crown and the Missing Lioness.
Wait, I know we talked about this when we did Hunt for Red October. Remind me why John McTiernan was in prison?
Oh, illegal wiretapping and lying to the FBI about it.
Okay. That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so he was in
It
prison.
Sounds like bad.
He's
a
out of
bad
prison
thing to
now.
do. Well, good
He's out
for
of prison
him.
now, but apparently while he was in prison, he wrote a sequel to it.
Illegal wiretap.
There's just so much about this that like it'll never come to pass, but like I'm more fascinated in this potential sequel than I am in the original. I tell you what.
I'm fascinated in the John McTiernan story. Why doesn't someone make that into a movie? Who was he wiretapping?
I mean, here's the deal. Hollywood loves making movies about Hollywood,
That's
so
right.
it really would make sense for someone to do that.
That's right. And maybe he probably needs the cash.
Thus ends Appendix Part 1. Appendix Part 2. We might have to do a follow-up episode in a couple of years.
Oh, God.
Because there is a second remake of the Thomas Crown Affair that is on the docket
Oh, boy.
in Hollywood. Obviously, given coronavirus ending at some point.
Yeah.
When they get back to making movies.
Maybe they'll just make it like remotely.
Mm-hmm. So this has been kicking around for a few years. It will be produced by Joe and Anthony Russo. They of, I think, most famously directing a bunch of Arrested Development and Community episodes. Also Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and Captain, like the highest grossing movies of all time. They did those as well.
Are they related to Renee?
No.
That's quite a coincidence.
I mean, I guess so. Russo's a name.
Yeah.
They're related to each other.
Well, yeah,
They're brothers.
I understand that from what you just said.
Brothers from the same mother, some say.
Cool.
So they are going to produce it, and it will star Michael B. Jordan
Okay.
of Black Panther,
Right.
and The Wire,
Mm-hmm.
and Creed,
Mm-hmm.
who's very good. These are people I like. This was first reported years ago, and I guess last summer at like San Diego Comic-Con, they said, this is what we are doing. This is happening. I still am not 100% sure that it's going to happen, but there's going to be another remake of Thomas Crown Affair coming out,
Oh, boy.
potentially, with Michael B. Jordan, produced by the Russo brothers. And like, I'll watch it. I kind of have to at this point.
At this point.
Like, I feel like there is a fun movie to be made.
We've promised so many follow-ups that have not yet happened, although we have one that we think is actually going to happen
Yeah.
in several months or weeks,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how time works.
You might even have heard about it in the intro to this episode.
Potentially.
Yeah, like we don't always know exactly what the right hand does not always know what the left hand is doing on this show. We're doing
It's
our
been
best.
a hard couple of months.
We are doing our best.
We're doing our best.
And thus ends our look at the Thomas Crown Affair, 1968 and 1969.
Do you want to do a quick quadrant?
Let's do a real quick quadrants. I think this one will be easy. Do you think that the people who made the remake of the Thomas Crown Affair cared about the original?
Famously.
Famously!
Famously.
Interviews about it and the whole thing. Do you think that what they made was successful at the beginning?
Ultimately,
No, did you think what they made was successful at the beginning?
at the beginning, like in the
Yes.
first 15 minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
And then what happened?
It got bad.
Okay, so no, it was not
It was not
successful,
successful.
to us, these two viewers.
No.
Ah,
You might feel differently, but we did not care for it.
it just wasn't cool.
Yeah, so it was not
The worst
cool.
parts of the 90s, it was so uncool.
It was so dated. It was so interesting how something from the 60s could be cool and vintage and something from the 90s was just dated. Very unfortunate.
God, I could really go for a Pepsi One right now, though. I tell you.
I tell you what.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated.
And I can compare them in the computer.
Yes, we'll compare them in the computer.
Compare them in the computer.
Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel. Never ending nor beginning. Like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. Goodbye,
end, goodbye.
everybody.